But now that we're doing more and more of this, we want to get those subscribers up. Okay, so go out to YouTube, and I'll post that here in just a moment, so that you can check it out and go ahead and become a subscriber. Would really, really appreciate that as well. So I guess our headlines today. Let me go back. Okay. Our headlines today is obviously we'll talk a little bit about the British Open. So why don't I go ahead and give you some information about that, and then I'll get this YouTube piece posted for you. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So here are the here is the current leaderboard. If you don't know it, I mean, obviously they're in Europe, and some of them were teeing off early this morning. But this morning we'll get some. And I'm going to be honest with you. They're playing at Royal Portrush Golf Course. I don't know if this is tape delayed. Some of it may be, but they're already playing right now on the Golf Channel. Okay, so and as I look at the leaderboard, there are some familiar names if you follow the sport. But if you're one of those people who, you're in and out, not many familiar names at the top of the leaderboard. There are a few. But here's where it stands right now. Shane Lowry and J.B. Holmes are both tied at the top of the leaderboard at 8 under. Lee Westwood and Tommy Fleetwood, 7 under. Justin Harding, Cameron Smith, Justin Rose, there's a familiar name. So is Shane Lowry and J.B. Holmes, by the way, and Lee Westwood. Okay. Justin Rose is tied for 5th at 6 under. Jordan Spieth, Andrew Putnam, Dylan Fratelli, and Brooks Koepka is tied for 8th. I'm sorry. And let's see, that's about it. That's basically the top 10. Okay. No, I didn't call Tiger Woods' name. We're going to talk about him in a moment. I'm not a big, look, I follow golf. I'm familiar with golf. I know how it plays. I've never been I've only played a full course of golf, round of golf, once in my entire life. Just never played it. Now, we did play a lot of putt-putt. Now, that's miniature golf, but it wasn't hitting the ball through the clown's mouth. No, not that kind of putt-putt. And I wonder, that means, I just had let me look at something. Because putt-putt golf courses used to be all around the area. There was one out on University, and I don't think they even exist anymore. The only miniature golf course that I know of is out off of Colonel Glenn. It has the go-kart and things of that nature, but it's not the official putt-putt course. Putt-putt used to be a competitive putting range, and people used to make a lot of people used to go out. Remember, where the current, the state police office out in Guyer Springs? There's a hotel out there, and right there used to be a putt-putt golf course. But now they're all going back to the clown mouth. And, I just went out, and because it just popped into my head, I don't see putt-putt anymore. And I think they went out of business. So that was as close as I got to golf from back in the day. So that's your British Open update. Of course, Tiger Woods did not make the cut. And I'll be honest, Tiger looked yesterday defeated. He really did after he didn't make the cut. As you know, Tiger has had spinal fusion, a lot of problems with his back. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. If he wins another major, it'll be just icing on the cake for him. But I can no longer go into a golf course expecting Tiger Woods to win. It's just, It's just no. It's just not going to happen because spinal fusion is the real deal. If you all don't know what that is, here's the best way I can describe it. Imagine this. Imagine stacking Oreo cookies on top of each other. Or better still, you've opened up a package of Oreos and they're in that tray, right? And every now and then you'll have 2 or 3 of them that sit beside each other that are broken, and the top of it is bent over the cream. That's kind of what your vertebrae looks like. And I was thinking about this yesterday. What is the best way that I could describe what a collapsed vertebrae is? Because typically when you have spinal fusion, that's what you have is a collapsed vertebrae. Okay? And you usually have 2 or 3 vertebrae that are collapsed. In my case, yes, I've had spinal fusion. In my case, I had C3 through C7. So, of course, there are 3 sections of your spine: the cervical, the thoracic, and the lumbar. So when it starts with a C, that means those are 7. That's where it's in the cervical. If it starts with a T, it's in the thoracic area. And if it starts with an L, that's usually your lower back. That's the lumbar area. Now, I have C3 through C7 that are fused. That means they went in, they basically drilled holes in my spine and attached, the lack of a better term, hinges. So my neck is stronger. That's what Tiger Woods has. Now, the funny thing about it, when I was leaving the hospital, I told the doctor, I said, the one thing that I feared more than anything, and I'm telling you this was really true, is that if I'm driving home or driving somewhere and someone hits me in the back and snaps my neck and my head falls off. He laughed. And he told me that, hey, your neck is going to be stronger than it even before you had the fusion. That's what they tell you, but how your spinal cord operates is totally different. So, for instance, when I got my spinal fusion, over the years, what has occurred now is, because everybody's spinal cord is different. There's no spinal cord that's alike. And by the way, your spinal cord is probably the most complex musculoskeletal, neurological piece in your body, because everything you do is attached to your spinal cord. So it's not an exact science. I tell people now, if they tell you they want to cut on your back, man, try to avoid it as much as possible. But athletes do try it. In my case, I was a former athlete, and I had no choice because I wasn't having any feeling on my left side. One day, walking through the mall in Nashville, me and my son, and I kind of stopped. He said, "Dad, you okay?" I said, "I'm not feeling anything in my left side." Went to the doctor. Doctor did X-rays. He came in. He said, "Hey, you're a former football player, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" He said, "Because I get a lot of football players that come in here with collapsed vertebrae. That's what you have." He said, "In other words, you have a broken neck if you don't get something done with it." He said, "I'm surprised that you went so long, because I broke my neck back in the 80s, and it wasn't until the 2000s that I got something done about it." He said, "I'm surprised that you're not paralyzed." He said, "If you don't get something done about it, you will be paralyzed." So that's what made me do the surgery. That's why I know so much about it. That's why I know Tiger Woods is never going to be the Tiger Woods that we've seen before. You all have heard me talk about it. I have issues literally every day. When I go to a doctor, they'll ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain level? I say 4. 4 is always my pain level. I hurt every day because of this spinal fusion. And then in my case, it misaligned other vertebrae in my back now. So I have T5 through 8 that's misaligned because of the fusion that I had above. So Tiger is look, if he wins again, it it will just be icing on the cake. Because that spinal fusion is the real deal. I'm sitting here now, I'm in pain. I woke up this morning, I was in pain. I walk around every day because of this spinal fusion. Now, the alternative, what they told me, and probably what Tiger was going through as well, is that if you don't get it done, you're going to be paralyzed. That was my alternative. You can't turn the way. Look, it's on my left side, so like for instance, when I'm driving, I no longer can turn my head. I have to literally turn my whole body to look left. I've gotten used to that over the years. But that's what I do. So Tiger Woods, you love him or hate him, at the end of the day, Tiger Woods is probably never going to be the Tiger Woods that we're used to seeing. Unfortunately. He's never going to, and number one, you throw in the fact that Tiger is 40-something, 42, 43 years old? You throw that in and what do you think? I'm just saying. So, it was a good run. Unfortunately for Tiger, his career has been damaged with injuries. The other thing is, people talk about the greatness of Tiger Woods. And in my opinion, and look, and it's gonna be hard to argue with this. He is the greatest golfer we've ever seen. He is the greatest golfer we've ever seen. And yes, I did see Jack. I was able to see Arnold Palmer. I got to see a lot of these so-called great Lee Trevino. Tiger Woods is and I'll use one point. I don't know of any athlete, any sport that has changed its parameters to try to keep one person from winning. Just imagine if the NBA would have said, hey, Shaq is too tall. Giannis Antetokounmpo is too tall. Bol is too tall. So we're gonna instead of the goal being 9 foot tall, let's make it 10.5 feet tall. I've never seen a sport change its parameters to keep somebody from winning. And that's what golf did. Now, I believe part of it was racist because here was a black kid, although he didn't realize he was black, running through golf. I mean, what was it? Was that the PGA or something, the U.S. Open, where he just blew people away? And then all of a sudden you heard him saying, well, we need to tiger-proof the courses. We got to tiger-proof the courses. So what that really meant in code was, we got to keep this black boy from winning all the tournaments. So had they not even tiger-proofed the courses, Tiger Woods would have blown by Jack Nicklaus a long time ago. See, that's one little caveat that they don't want to. They want to keep Jack as the person. But I think everybody knows in their heart of hearts, had they not tiger-proofed the courses, Tiger Woods would have blown by Jack Nicklaus a long time ago. They'll never admit it. But I've never seen a sport to do that. Never seen a sport to do that. So in my opinion, Tiger Woods is the best golfer we've ever seen in modern times. The other thing is, look what Tiger Woods does for golf. Look at all the purses, how they've increased. Every golfer owes their current fame today. If you're playing in the Tiger Woods era, and if you've won anything, I think they pay up to the cut. And some courses pay all the way down to the 50th player. Those purses were increased because of Tiger Woods. So you may have been, let's say for instance, if you're the 40th player, your winnings may be $19,000. Prior to Tiger Woods, they may have been $5,000. Look at the eyeballs that Tiger Woods has brought to golf. On Sundays, when Tiger isn't playing, Even when he's not playing, forget about whether or not he's in the hunt. The ratings are down. Every tournament is hoping that Tiger Woods will be at least playing on Sundays because people watch for Tiger Woods. Those eyeballs, some of those eyeballs that Tiger is bringing to golf, that brought to golf, were black people, people of color. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure. I thought I saved that, but an all-black golf team, and I'm going to have to look that up, just one, a tournament, a pretty significant tournament. I'm going to have to go out and find it, but I'm pretty sure I saw that last week. But the point is that Tiger Woods has more people coming in, playing the game, more black people. Black people have always played the game. They just didn't get the opportunity to play at some of the big tournaments. You know, and Tiger would always talk about, I owe golf, I owe this to Ernie Sifford and Ted Rhodes. Those are black golfers, whether you knew it or not. So Tiger did a lot. All of those things is because of Tiger Woods. So you got to say that Tiger Woods is no doubt the best golfer that we've seen in this generation. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with us. We're going to go out and take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into some other headlines. It's the weekly sports magazine, and oh, by the way, we play the best old school bumper music in the universe. We'll come back. Today we're going to play a little Curtis Mayfield on joynetradio.com.
How many people have come up to you and said, hey, I didn't know you had a business? Yeah, that can happen when you don't advertise. I have a solution for you. Advertise on joynetradio.com and let the world know that you're in business. I know what you're thinking. Advertising is so expensive. I've got a great package for you that will cut your expense and increase your bottom line. It's only $125 for startup and new businesses. Call me, David W. Coleman, at 615-554-0568, and I'll put together a package specifically for your business. Now is the time to tell the world, hey, I'm in business. Come spend your money on quality goods in my store. Let us help you at joynetradio.com. Here's the number. Call me 615-554-0568. We are here to assist you in building your brand.
Hi, I'm attorney Theodore Thompson from the Thompson Law Firm, and I want to help with your legal matters. Whether it's criminal defense, bankruptcy, personal injury, or family law, I want to help you. I can be reached at 501-503-5095. Don't face your legal issues alone. You need an attorney whose primary objective is to provide you with the best legal representation. Our office address is 415 North McKinley, Suite 710 in Little Rock. I'm attorney Theodore Thompson, and I want to provide you with the best legal representation.
I'm so glad I found a Kick Above. It's like my very own personal training studio. A Kick Above removed the guesswork and intimidation and offered me a very supportive and structured environment specific to my personal goals. Kim Leverett and her certified personal trainer even offered nutritional guidelines for my personal workout. It's about me at a Kick Above. Call 501-868-8850 or go to akickabove.com. Now, what am I wearing tonight? Thanks to a Kick Above, I look marvelous.
Mitchell Funeral Home welcomes all of Arkadelphia and Arkansas in Clark County since 1966. At Mitchell Funeral Home, they understand that the funeral is a celebration of life and legacy, so the entire staff takes great pride in the caring, personal, and professional services they provide. Cremations, funeral planning, burial policy, life insurance, notary, and monument sales are just a few of the services they offer. Flexible packages are available as well. Mitchell Funeral Home appreciates the trust and confidence placed in them and will continue to enhance their services so as to serve you better. Call now. Get connected. 870-246-2611. That's 870-246-2611. Call, click, or come by. MitchellFuneralServices.com. Don't wait till we're needed. Call us now. Let's walk through this together. 870-246-2611. It's quality you can appreciate and service you can depend on at Mitchell Funeral Home.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're jamming Curtis Mayfield this morning. Yeah, a car at all. Just remember, brothers and sisters, just be thankful for what you got. Classic cut. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. We'll be jamming Curtis Mayfield all morning because, we play the best old school bumper music in the universe. Don't get it twisted. We jamming it right now. As a matter of fact, somebody just posted, and I don't know, I think what made me do Curtis Mayfield, someone posted, Curtis Mayfield was the voice of the civil rights era. Yeah. Man, that really sounds good. Be sure to go out to the youth. Let me see if it should be up now. There it is. The link is there. I'm going to go ahead and post the YouTube link. And if you all would do me a favor, when you see it on Facebook, jump on it and go out and subscribe to the channel. Just hit the button. Subscribe, man. Okay? Will y'all do that for me? Hope you will. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. As a matter of fact, we're trying to do that both not only on the weekly sports magazine on YouTube, but also we're trying to get it up on Black Focus Radio. So it would be much appreciative if you cool cats would go out there and like the page. You know what I'm saying? Y'all go ahead and do that. So this segment, of course, some other news. The NFL has decided that they will not bar Tyreek Hill, the Kansas City Chief football player who there was some disturbing video or audio of him threatening his wife. And then, of course, his son's arm had been broken and stuff like that. And apparently the video or the audio that we heard had been doctored. And according to the reports, in fact, I'll just read the NFL statement to you. Over the past 4 months, we have conducted a comprehensive investigation of allegations regarding Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Throughout this investigation, the NFL's primary concern has been the well-being of the child. Our understanding is that the child is safe and that the child's ongoing care is being directed and monitored by the Johnson County District Court and the Johnson County Department of Children and Families. In conducting our investigation, we have taken great care to ensure that we do not interfere with the county's proceedings and compromise the privacy or welfare of the child in any way. The information developed in the court proceedings is confidential and has not been shared with us. The court has sealed all law enforcement records. Local law enforcement authorities have publicly advised that the available evidence does not permit them to determine who caused the child's injuries. Similarly, based on the evidence presently available, the NFL cannot conclude that Mr. Hill violated the personal conduct policy. Accordingly, he may attend Kansas City's training camp and participate in all club activities. He has been and will continue to be subject to conditions set forth by the district court, Commissioner Goodell, the Chiefs, which include clinical evaluation and therapeutic counseling. Okay, so if further information becomes available through law enforcement, the pending court proceedings, or other sources, we will promptly consider it all and take appropriate steps at that time. So the audio that I heard was pretty damning. So, but even beyond that, because the NFL clearly now does not have the option to punish Tyreek Hill. But here's the thing, and I found it interesting. When I read this statement yesterday, I found it interesting that now, when you look at it, and what I've said about the NFL all along, is that their investigative services is a bunch of crap. When they say they're going to investigate, the NFL doesn't have any subpoena power. The NFL doesn't have any legal power. The NFL can't go to someone's court and say, hey, we want these records. So when players cross the line, I would argue if you really wanted to continue playing, don't talk to the NFL. Tell them, hey, I can't discuss it. It's under litigation. Because the NFL can't, you just heard me read that statement. Let me go back again to this statement. Okay? They said in conducting their investigation, we have taken great care to ensure that we do not interfere with the county's proceedings or compromise the privacy or welfare of the child in any way. How are you going to interfere? You can't interfere. You have no subpoena power. You are nothing more than a company, NFL. Let the police do their jobs. And then after the police have done their job, then you come in and say, okay, you need to be suspended. You're going to miss 4 games. And I know this might not be popular with NFL fans, but there is a thing called due process. Now, look, I'm not trying to run interference with Tyreek Hill, because based on the evidence that I heard, that tape that I heard, it was pretty damning to him. Your child is afraid of you. Your child has a broken arm. It was alleged that you broke his arm. That was pretty damning. But now, I didn't hear all the evidence. Yeah, we can convict a person in the court of public opinion, as many did with Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill might be a terrible person anyway. He's probably a terrible person. I don't know that to be sure. But even the worst of us have a right to due process. And the NFL can say, it's a little different when someone has been in a DUI accident and you've blown a 2.0 and that's become public record. But when it's a he say, she say, and there's no evidence to back that up, then how you, the NFL, can come in and do anything? Here's the other problem I had. Who was the other Kansas City chief? I've forgotten his name. Who end up, you saw the video of him kicking the girl. Let me see if I can pull it up real fast. Kareem Hunt. Now, what we saw with Kareem Hunt was bad. What we didn't see, or what we didn't know about, was the beginning of the story, where that young lady was basically a hanger-on, a groupie. Hunt them later on, he and his boys later on came and said, we just kind of picked her up. She started acting funny. We told her to leave. She didn't want to leave. Then they threw her out. She kept talking noise, and then that's when Kareem Hunt got into it, and we saw that ugly video of her shoving her and kicking her. It was terrible. But I think what we have to be aware of, and you know, I'm going to be honest with you, this mess about we shouldn't be hitting women, I totally agree with that. But if a woman comes up and slugs you, this mess, look, you should not be hitting anybody, man or female. But Kareem Hunt, because of that video and the aftermath of what we saw, was suspended, sent to another team. I don't know if the NFL did any investigating with Kareem Hunt. I think they went on that video. There are mitigating circumstances sometimes. Now that Giants kicker, that's another story. He was beating his wife. He should have been suspended a long time before he was suspended. But what I'm saying with all this is, when the NFL says that they're investigating a criminal matter, and they suspend a player based on that criminal matter before it has been adjudicated, I think that's out of line. I'm not saying players should not be suspended for running afoul of the law. Of course they should. But I think just because you're an NFL player, you have the right to jurisprudence. You have a right to a trial. And for someone to come and say, well, you make us look bad, so we got to suspend you, I think that's wrong. I just do. The NFL has no investigative powers. None. The only way they're going to get information, if they're lucky, that someone from that local police department, whatever jurisdiction that they're in, will slip them or leak them information. The NFL can't show up at a crime scene and say, well, you know, we're the NFL. We need to look at the crime scene. We need to take our own pictures. We need to talk to the victims. No. I've been saying this for years. The NFL has no investigative powers whatsoever. Now, they might have ex-police officers on their investigative teams, but as far as legal power, they have none. And when you see these young men get into trouble, I think the NFL needs to back off. Let the process take place. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, you know, they're going to still be playing while well, they could be. There are people every day who get in trouble with the law and still go to work. Well, the NFL is a job, folks. I know y'all look at it as a game, but pro sports is a job. Unlike most jobs, but it's still a job. You still can't miss work without calling. So I find that interesting. But Kareem Hunt not Kareem Hunt, but Tyreek Hill is back. He won't miss any games this year at all, unless some other news comes out about this. I am curious, though, and we'll probably never know at this point, how did the boy get his arm broken? And did you maliciously break that boy's arm? Because if you did, Tyreek Hill, You are a piece of junk. We know that you had already been in trouble for abusing the young lady that you're with right now when she was pregnant with the son that was part of that abuse. How did that boy get his arm broken? I don't know. But at the end of the day, Tyreek Hill is free to play for the Kansas City Chiefs. And it proves once again that the NFL thinks they are bigger than what they are. Because they clearly had no proof whatsoever to keep him out. Now, in retro, see, they've already kept what he missed the entire year last year, didn't he? Just about. They were ready to dump him out the league, which if he did what they say he did, yeah, he shouldn't. Well, you know what? That depends. I don't think when someone runs afoul of the law that you ought to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah, you can sit back and say, hey, yeah, they should have known, yeah. But sometimes circumstances happen. And depending on the degree of that circumstance, I don't know that you ought to be throwing people to the wolves and washing your hands of them and saying, hey, we're done with you. I don't know. But, again, Kansas City fans ought to be happy about that. Speaking of Kansas City has received a grant to restore Satchel Paige's home. Now, of course, I'm sitting here right now, if you're watching the video, with the Birmingham Black Barons baseball cap on. Got this from the Negro League Baseball Museum 2 weeks ago when I was in Kansas City. Rightfully so. This should be done. It is in disrepair. It's ugly. It's terrible. 28th and Prospect Street. Now, I probably went by this house because I remember driving on Prospect. So next week, we're reaching out to Bob Kendrick, who is the president of the Negro League Baseball Museum. And we're going to try to have him on the show to talk a little bit about Satchel Paige, the restoration of the home. I'm wondering if they are involved in this, as well as the Negro League Baseball Museum as well. So we'll be reaching out to him this week to get him on next week. As I've told you before, if you're in the Kansas City area, yeah, it's great with jazz. It's great with barbecue is great, but you got to go to 18th and Vine. 18th and Vine is where they're saying jazz began. And, of course, that's where the Jazz Museum is and the Negro League Baseball Museum. All of them are fantastic, fantastic museums. Of course, you hear me talk about it all the time. I am a museum fanatic. I love museums, particularly black museums. So go check that out. And my favorite part of the Negro League Museum is the simulated, there are two. The simulated baseball field with all the greats at their respective positions. Satchel Paige on the mound, by the way. And then, of course, the baseball display, over 300 baseballs signed by Negro leaguers that are on display there as well. And that great story behind it, where they were up for auction somewhere in Canada, and a band member from some white band saw them, and he ends up donating them to the Negro League Baseball Museum in Kansas City. Great, great story. Okay. All right, we're going to go out and take another quick break. When we come back, we'll jump into some other headlines as well. I'm going to look at, next hour, we're going to talk a little bit more NBA. I'm going to look at what's left and where does Chris Paul end up? I got a team that I think he can end up at, but unfortunately, they already gave a $170 million contract to somebody that can't throw it in the lake. Back in a moment, you're listening to the Weekly Sports Magazine on JoyNetRadio.com.
Law firms cannot offer. Our experienced attorneys have brought hundreds of cases to verdict in state and federal court and recovered millions for our clients. If you or a loved one have been injured or have property wrongfully damaged, we may be able to help. Do not hesitate to contact our firm anytime for a free attorney consultation. Call 1-800-848-1290. That's 1-800-848-1290. Or email inquiries at arkansas-personal-injury.com. Our law offices are centrally located at 212 Center Street in Little Rock. That's the law offices of James F. Swindoll, personal injury and products liability attorney serving Arkansas since 1977.
Mitchell Funeral Home welcomes all of Arkadelphia and Arkansas to connect with a family-owned and operated service provider in Clark County since 1966. At Mitchell Funeral Home, they understand that the funeral is a celebration of life and legacy, so the entire staff takes great pride in the caring, personal, and professional services they provide. Cremations, funeral planning, burial policy, life insurance, notary, and monument sales are just a few of the services they offer. Flexible packages are available as well. Mitchell Funeral Home appreciates the trust and confidence placed in them and will continue to enhance their services so as to serve you better. Call now. Get connected. 870-246-2611. That's 870-246-2611. Call, click, or come by. MitchellFuneralServices.com. Don't wait till we're needed. Call us now. Let's walk through this together. 870-246-2611. It's quality you can appreciate and service you can depend on at Mitchell Funeral Home.
Hi, this is Alvin from Habibi's 4317 East Broadway in North Little Rock. We still have the green top at your very next stop. The same great service for more on it. Give us a call, 501-663-1553 or 664-2992, or call our toll-free number, 1-877-HABIBI-1. Diapers, pull-ups, hospital beds, wheelchairs, Simply Fit, diabetic supplies, underpads, and more. Your durable medical supply center.
LeBron James is the greatest player we've seen this generation. You have to be careful when you start saying, and so, well, he wasn't as good as Mike, or he wasn't as good as Magic. Every generation you get that. You begin to sound like that old man that lives down the street, and every time you walk on his yard, and you even walk by his yard, he's on the porch, and he's got that little crooked finger, he's like, get off my lawn! Get off my lawn! Join the Weekly Sports Magazine every Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. on joynetradio.com. Get off my lawn! Choose crackers. Don't worry. If there's hell below, we're all gonna go.
All right, welcome back to the Weekly Sports Magazine. In the background, we're jamming a little Curtis Mayfield. He is our guest artist for today. It's called If There's a Hell Below, We're All Gonna Go. Let's get a little bit of that. Now, I'm going to tell you, folks, I'm a huge Curtis Mayfield fan. The brother could go. He's one of those people that I'll tell you, they go out to YouTube, look at Curtis Mayfield, the greatest hits, and just click play. I'm telling you, this guy was a poet. He was the voice of the 60s. Go check out this song. If there's a hell below, we're all gonna go. All right, so what I did I briefly mentioned, and every time I tell the story of the Negro League Baseball Museum and those baseballs, because those baseballs, that exhibit of those signed baseballs they're breathtaking. I mean, it's amazing because when you go in, the last part of the museum is the simulated baseball field. And they have life-size statues of all of the greats at their respective positions. First base, second base, pitch, you name it, they're at their respective positions. And in the outfield, it kind of simulates a row of bleachers. They have over, and I said 300, it's over 200 autographed baseballs of Negro League baseball members. And I mean, and the baseball field is dimmed, but the lights are mainly cast on the baseball exhibit. It's beautiful. And I always forget the story, and Bob Kendrick told that story on the Weekly Sports Magazine about 2 or 3 years ago. And the story is that a band member, and believe it or not, a band member from the band called Rush. Now, many of y'all may not have ever heard of Rush. I'm familiar with Rush because, believe it or not, I did listen to a little rock and roll back in the day. Okay? So apparently, these autographed baseballs were up for auction. And once we get Bob Kendrick on, we'll let you tell that. We'll let you tell that story. Let him tell that story. And one of the band members, his name is Geddy Lee, Geddy Lee. He was an avid baseball fan. He was at the auction. He bought every one of the baseballs. And you would think that, oh, well, this is a time-honored mementos here. I'm going to hang on to them and make some money off of them. But instead of him doing that, you know what he did? He donated them to the Negro League Baseball Museum. And that's why that exhibit is so profound. Here was a white guy from a rock and roll band, Geddy Lee. This happened back in 2008. He bought the baseballs and donated all over 200 signed autographed baseballs from Negro Leaguers to the Negro League Baseball Museum. I know y'all said, man, you talk about the Negro League Baseball Museum like you work there. I'm telling you, it is the best. It is the best museum as far as black achievement in sports. In fact, I don't know if there's any others out there. Let me take a quick break. I'll be right back. I need to let someone in the door. I'll be back here in just a moment. Let me just get me some music playing. Back in a moment. All right, sorry about that. All right, we're gonna go ahead and take the top of the hour break right now. But I just need to tell you that story, and we're gonna get Bob Kendrick on next week on the Weekly Sports Magazine, and let him tell the story about how Geddy Lee donated those baseballs to the Baseball Museum. It is a great, great story. 855-525-5683 is the number. It's the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave on JointEdRadio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Saints abroad, get ready from
All
South Carolina. It's Minister
So,
Burgess and Resurrection.
the show on Saturday is similar, and you can come over here. And what I'll do here, I'll let you go ahead and run it. You'll be all right. The only difference is you're going to take the same breaks, okay? And on my stuff, the weekly sports magazine, WSM. So you got the bed. This is the close. You won't have to worry about the open. Well, the open will come back after the top of the hour here in just a moment. Okay? But other than that, everything basically runs the same. Okay? So let's swap out. So,
that's two.
Yeah, I'll be on 2 today. Now go ahead and.
And I want to help with your legal matter.
So when you come back,
Bankruptcy, personal.
you'll do just go straight to the open. Okay. There's no disclaimer or anything for this show.
Don't base your legal issues alone. You need an attorney whose primary objective is to provide you with the best legal representation. Our office address is 415 North McKinley, Suite 710 in Little Rock. I'm attorney to and I want to provide you with the best legal representation.
You fade first, or you fade in the jet, fade, then press, or you.
In that case, you won't have to fade it off. It'll once it ends, just go ahead and hit the open.
Or go to akickabar.com. Now, what am I wearing tonight? Thanks to A Kick Above, I look marvelous.
It's time for the weekly sports page with the dynamic David Coleman. Stay tuned for thrills, chills, and yes, spills. Oh yeah. And
Now, the other thing is,
855-525.
over on that other computer, right, click where it says, see where that song that says People Get Ready by Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions? Click that. Put it on pause. Now pot up that computer. Now when we come back, I want you to play that song here in just a moment. I'll give you the finger when I want you to play it, okay?
Now here's dynamic David Coleman.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's called the Weekly Sports Magazine. I'm Dynamic Dave on joynetradio.com. Of course, we're kicking back like a fat rat, old school style. And I'm kind of jamming this morning with Curtis Mayfield, of course, one of my favorite old-time artists. People get ready. There's a train a-coming. That's with the Impressions, by the way. Nice cut. We're jamming Curtis Mayfield all morning long. I really appreciate everybody joining me. If you notice, I've kind of changed my position. We've got one of the interns in today, Clayton Williams, they've been with us all week long. I invited him to come in and sit in on my show today and sit in with David Ashley as well. He'll be here, coming up here in a little bit at the top of the hour with Real Talk, Real Money. Okay? That's a nice cut. That's a nice cut. All right, so we talked a little bit about the Negro League Baseball Museum last week, and of course, I never could remember the name of that band member, Geddy Lee, who donated those baseballs to the Negro League. So now we know. All right. And I guess putt, let me give you a quick update on the leaderboard for the British Open. Some of the guys still haven't teed off this morning. It's still basically where we started this morning. Shane Lowry, J.B. Holmes, they're tied for first. Tommy Fleetwood, Lee Westwood tied for third. Justin Harding, Cameron Smith, Justin Rose tied for fifth. Sang Hoon Park and Hun Ann, Webb Simpson, Henrik Stenson, Matt Kuchar, Jordan Spieth, Andrew Putnam, Brooks Koepka, and Dylan Fratelli is all tied for eighth. Look, you look at it like this, all the way down to you've got a whole group of people tied for 17th that are 4 under. Right now, at the top of the leaderboard, the leader is only 8 under. So if you look at it like, if you just want competition, you've got close to 34 golfers, all within 6 shots. So this thing still can go any way today. So if you're just looking for a competitive golf tournament, it looks like it's going to be competitive. The problem is, if you're one of those hanger-ons and you're a Tiger Woods fan or a Phil Mickelson fan, you won't be seeing either of them today because they didn't make the cut. Okay? So we'll give you another update later on in the show as it relates to those guys. So let me talk a little bit about college football. Well, let's do this. Let's do college basketball, or basketball in general. So last week we found out that Chris Paul was traded to the Houston Rockets traded from the Houston Rockets to Oklahoma City for Russell Westbrook. And, you know, everybody is all of a sudden saying, oh, well, the Rockets are back. The Rockets are back. I don't think this is going to work at all. There's a reason why James Harden left the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first place. It's because he felt like that he wasn't getting his due. He felt like Russell Westbrook was getting all the due. Now, he claims that he wanted to play with Russell Westbrook. And someone posted some videos of during the time that Harden was running the point and Westbrook was, he was going crazy. You know, alley-oops and all kinds of things. But here's the problem. That was 5, 6, 7 years ago? That athleticism that Westbrook showed with them spring legs, them young legs, that ain't there necessarily anymore. Then you look at it from this perspective. Westbrook is used. You got two ball pounders. Who's going to defer? Now, some people say, well, Westbrook will defer because James Harden has been at Houston and that's his team. I don't know if Westbrook has that disposition to defer to James Harden. Part of the reason Chris Paul is not there is because he dared to speak up against James Harden. Because whether you like it or not, the Houston Rockets is James Harden's team. Now, they're not going to win crap. I said a couple of years ago, you remember when they had the Golden State Warriors on the rope and James Harden didn't show up in the playoffs? Y'all remember that? He didn't show up. That was the same year he got the MVP. I said then he didn't deserve the MVP. We get caught up in just because people can put up statistics, we say those are the greatest players. No, there's more than an MVP to being an MVP than just putting up points. I said that year LeBron James should have been the MVP. And had they beaten Golden State, they were going to play the Cleveland Cavaliers in the finals. I said that Cleveland would have won that. In fact, I was hoping they beat Golden State. Cleveland would have beaten the Houston Rockets. You know why? Number one, James Harden is more concerned about his numbers than concerned about him being an overall player. Y'all remember a couple of years ago when they put the tape on the camera on James Harden, and let's see what James Harden does on defense. Not a damn thing. In fact, if James Harden doesn't have the ball, and maybe that's why they give James Harden the ball, because if he doesn't have the ball, then guess what? He doesn't run cuts. He doesn't try to make himself get available. He'll stand at the top of the key and watch, and then he'll do a little fake, and then they'll throw it back to him. But other than that, that's all James Harden does. I don't see him and Russell Westbrook, even though they played together previously, even though James Harden said that, hey, I want Russell Westbrook, I don't see this marriage working at all. At all. Me personally, I was hoping that the Philadelphia 76ers would go out and sign sign Russell Westbrook. The money was about the same as it relates to Ben Simmons. I don't believe in experiments in the pros. Here's the thing. We see it all the time. And I go back to one of the most famous experiments in the pros that we've seen. You all remember Ronaldo Nehemiah? Remember him? 110-meter hurdler, gold medalist, fast as the Dickens, fast as the wind. The San Francisco 49ers offered him a contract to become a football player. He couldn't catch. He couldn't catch. These experiments with players, if you don't already have your skills developed in a sport discipline, it's hard for you to go to another sport and play. Now, we've seen it happen. The most successful was Bo Jackson. The most successful. Deion Sanders tried it, but he was nowhere near successful as Bo Jackson. We saw Michael Jordan try it. He had played baseball back in high school. No, you had not worked on your game. You were experimenting. So typically when you get these guys to cross over in sports, if they don't have that discipline already in their repertoire, they're not going to be that good. So I'm just saying, I don't think it's going to work. The other caveat to this is Mark D'Antoni. Mark D'Antoni is not a very good coach. Chris Paul wanted to run a structured offense. Chris Paul wanted people to cut. Chris Paul wanted people to set screens for somebody other than James Harden. Nope. So James Harden started complaining and whining and saying, oh, he talking about me. He not following my lead. Well, Chris Paul said, man, I got the ball. Why don't you cut? So we'll see how it works. But Ben Simmons, that experiment, Ben Simmons is around baseball, basketball. He can handle at 6'9", 6'10", he got great handles. He can't shoot. I said last week, and I said it the week before, I said it during the playoffs, that had Ben Simmons had a jump shot, it would have been the Philadelphia 76ers in the finals, not the Toronto Raptors. Because offensively, when you play the Philadelphia 76ers, Ben Simmons is self-check. Y'all remember back in the day, I don't know if they still call it that today, but back on the playground, when you knew someone couldn't shoot, you kind of sort of cover him, but every time he get the ball, you kind of just turn your back and say self-check, because he ain't going to hit. That's Ben Simmons. And they just gave, the Philadelphia 76ers just gave Ben Simmons, I believe it was a 5-year, $170-something million contract for a guy who can't shoot. Remember, this is the same team that drafted Markelle Fultz. He couldn't shoot. How do you lose your confidence in shooting? He couldn't shoot. So they drafted 2 guys who can't shoot, and now they just gave a guy a $170-something million contract who can't shoot. When if they were serious about winning an NBA championship, you could have taken that money and you could have eaten that Russell Westbrook contract or the Chris Paul contract. Chris Paul has a good 2-3 years left in him. You put a Chris Paul on the Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid and the other guys that they have now, man, that's a look, at the end of the day right now, yeah, Milwaukee was boss in the East. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Not taking anything away from Giannis Antetokounmpo. But here's the one thing that we know. What we discovered in the playoffs, he ain't ready. What we saw in the playoffs with Toronto and what they did to Antetokounmpo is what people are going to do with him all year long. Now let's see if he's developed his game, because all he did was take the ball at the top of the key, try to drive, double team. He did a poor job passing out of double teams. Turn the ball over. You're going to see a lot more teams employing that type of defense this year with Antetokounmpo. But you look at Joel Embiid, he can take you down low. He can take you to the top of the key. He's got he's got a pretty consistent three-point jumper. He's got an assist game. He can dish the dimes. All of that stuff. And then you got Ben Simmons, a guy who can't hit a 10-foot jumper. I don't even want you to hit a 15-foot jumper. I don't even want you to hit a three-pointer, Ben Simmons. I just want you to hit a 10-foot jumper. Develop your short game, because the short game is a lost art. Rip Hamilton, to me, had the best short game that we've seen in the NBA in quite some time. That game is over. But, hey, if you even had that, Ben Simmons, right now, your team wouldn't be playing 4-on-5 when it comes to offense. And that's what they were doing. That's exactly what they were doing. So, if I'm Philadelphia, now it looks like now this trade with Chris Paul is going to be in Oklahoma City at least till December, when some other teams can free it up. Now, I'm going to say this. Don't be surprised if Chris Paul ends up with the Los Angeles Lakers. Don't be surprised if Chris Paul ends up with the Los Angeles Lakers. If the Lakers get Chris Paul, y'all really going to be mad. Remember, Chris Paul tried to go to the Lakers once before, and the league blocked that trade. Y'all remember that? But I'm telling you, don't be surprised if by December 15th, when that trade deadline is available, that Chris Paul ends up in Philadelphia. In Los Angeles. I'd love for him to be in Philadelphia because, as I've said, I am a 76er fan. I'd love for that to happen. But unfortunately, it probably won't. So, we'll keep an eye on that. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. If you want to call the show and talk to me about anything that's going on in sports. Just quickly, let me give a shout out to my friend, former Tennessee Titan and University of Tennessee defensive lineman Albert Haynesworth. I talked a little bit about this last week on Black Focus Radio. Albert Haynesworth is in serious condition. Since then, Albert has issued a statement thanking everybody for coming out and hollering at him and prayers and things of that nature. The picture that I saw late last week, Albert is now sitting up. Okay? He is now sitting up. In fact, I'm going to call Albert sometime today. Albert and myself, we did a Titans show, and Albert was part of that show. I produced the show and co-hosted the show at times when the other co-hosts didn't come. Albert and I became very good friends. He's certainly taken a lot of hits in the media, but overall, the guy that I know, was a pretty good guy. So hopefully Albert will get through and be okay with that. Also, here in the Little Rock area, let's see, where is it? We had a former Razorback and former New York Giant to die of heat stroke, Mitch Petrus. Only 32 years of age. Now, according to reports that he was working in his father's barn or something, and he was, he succumbed to heat stroke at Baptist Medical Center in North Little Rock. Medical records indicated that Petrus felt ill after working outside and in his family's shop all day. The cause of death was listed as a heat stroke. So we'll leave that as is unless something else comes out. But either way, Petrus was a Super Bowl winner with the New York Giants, and he was only 32 years old, and was from Carlisle, Arkansas, a few miles up the road from where we are right now. Probably 40 miles, somewhere in there. It might be a little further. But our hats off to Mitch Petrus and his family, and certainly our concerns are with them as well. So bad news for, and by the way, former Arkansas Razorback as well. Bad news for them. One other shout out I want to give is to the Durham High School football player. His name is Jordan. He's from Jordan. High school football player from Jordan, North Carolina. And his name is Christopher Holliday. Christopher Holliday, a football player. Because, they like to think that jocks are dumb. Christopher Holliday, a football player, scored a perfect 36 on his ACT. 36. I tell young people all the time that if you score a 26, you will get free college. You can name your price. Here's a guy who's a football player. Let me say that again. A football player. Y'all think football players are dumb. And then, of course, some football players think they're dumb, so they don't try. But the reason this story is so important to me is because they say black kids aren't smart. I remember when I went to college and people would ask me what my major was. And it was so funny because my major was business administration. They would assume that my major was gym or physical education. Now here's the point. Physical education is not an easy major. You got to study kinesiology, musculoskeletal, all kinds of stuff to be a coach. But when white people would ask me what my major was, and I spent most of my classes in the economics building or the business building, they were stunned because I was a football player. I wasn't supposed to be able to do stuff like economics and mathematics and stuff like that. So hats off to this young man for letting people know, breaking the mold. And look, he's no special than anyone else. He just decided to study. You can do it too. This young man is a potential Myron Rolle. This young man is a potential Myron Rolle. He can name his price now. Does he want to play football? Nah. What if he wants to be a doctor or an astronaut? He can do that. So congratulations to this young man. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Christopher Holliday, scholar athlete, who scored a perfect 36 on his ACT. All right, let's see. We did Albert. Let's see what else we got on the agenda here. I do want to talk about, and I talked about this a little bit last week on Black Focus Radio. But I want to talk about this again. And, oh, by the way, one other note. Pernell Whitaker is dead at 55. You all may not know who Pernell Whitaker is, and especially young people. But Pernell Whitaker was part of that great 76 boxing squad. They called them Sweepy. One of the best boxers, pound for pound, that we've ever seen. He was killed last week crossing the street in Washington, D.C. That's unfortunate. Also, Hall of Fame pitcher Bob Gibson has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. That's not good either. Not to be morbid or anything, but we kind of know what happens with pancreatic cancer. To my knowledge, there has not been a cure for pancreatic cancer. Now, Bob Gibson is 82 years old. He's lived a great life. A great life. But that doesn't look good or sound good, to say the least. Now, since I was talking about the young man who scored the 36 on his ACT, last week, and I'm looking for that letter because I want to go through it again. I told you all that I'd talk a little bit more about it today on the Weekly Sports magazine. But the premise is that are we too quick to push our children into athletics as opposed to pushing them into academia? Because you can make just as much money. Well, let me take that back. You can make a very good living by being a professor as opposed to being an athlete. And you don't have all of the problems that you will after the fact once you become an athlete. So Martellus Bennett wrote a fantastic article last week that I want to read. Let me see here. That I thought was just profound. So I'm quickly trying to locate it. So just give me a moment. Because we've got to start asking ourselves, are we putting our children in positions of failure, considering the fact of the numbers or the lack thereof? Here we go. When it comes to being successful in sports, we have to ask this question. So Martellus Bennett wrote a wonderful article, and it's called Beyond the Game. We teach black boys sports are their only hope. What if we let them dream bigger? Think about that, folks. What if we let them dream bigger? What if we tell them, yesterday I was watching on Hulu. I don't have regular TV, I have Hulu. They were having a lot of NASA stuff on there. And what I watched yesterday was the development of the Curiosity rover. Man. And as me and my lady sat there and watched that video and we saw those scientists, the first thing that she said was, there aren't any black people in those science squads. And we watched a little bit further, and we watched a little bit further, and finally there was one black face that showed up. Now I know that there are black people at NASA, but not nearly enough. But this young man who scored this ACT, this 36 on the ACT, Christopher Holliday, when I saw that, I thought about this Martellus Bennett story or letter. Let me read this to you. As young black boys in Alief, Texas, my friends and I spent afternoons imagining ourselves scoring the game-winning touchdown at the end of the Super Bowl. Each time we went through it, the final play became even more outlandish. Blue 42, check, Omaha, set, hut. The quarterback would take the snap, drop back, and throw a short pass to the wide receiver, or, in my case, the tight end. I also loved short passes more than Hail Marys because you could really show off your skills as a runner. We juke 3 linebackers, break 20 tackles, stiff-arm the strong safety to the ground, and hurdle the referee before tiptoeing down the sidelines and front-flipping into the end zone. The crowd would erupt. Touchdown! Confetti would fall. The commentators would be stunned. We dogpiled each other, screaming and rejoicing, and we'd follow it with a post-game news conference. I prepared for this moment since I was a kid, we'd say. I always knew I would make it here. As we spoke, we'd get sips of Gatorade. Because when we made it big, that company would surely be one of our sponsors. It felt great, beyond great actually. It felt real. We knew we could be champions because the ones we watched on TV looked like us. Let me repeat that. We knew we could be champions because the ones we watched on TV looked like us. We had hardly learned that the escape to a better life, we had already learned that to escape to a better life, we needed to wear a jersey. The jersey became a cape, or our talents on the field became the superpowers we were recognized for. We were black boys. And to be born a black boy is to be born into athletics. Black fathers are often disappointed if their sons aren't good at sports. Not excelling at sports as a black boy meant not being cool. Even weirder, it meant not really being black. Think about that. How many times have you asked a young black boy who was tall, who was big, did he play sports? And how many times did you ask that same young black boy what his favorite subject was? We do it all the time. I remember a guy that I played with back in high school, and I'll call his name Dwayne Yarbrough. Big guy. He was probably about 250, 275 back in high school. Big guy. He didn't play football, though. You know what he played? He was in the band. And he was a heck of a tuba player, too. But I know over and over again, people would ask, y'all, bro, you need to come on out on this field with us, man. It ain't in everybody. Everybody will watch. And just because a guy is big or fast, that doesn't mean he's an athlete. When you're growing up as a black boy, it feels like the world tosses you a ball and says, good luck. Go get him, champ. The superpower we felt wearing a jersey were real. We could leap defenders in a single bound, run faster than a speeding bullet down the sideline, lift 400-pound offensive linemen with our super strength. Passed down generation to generation from black boy to black boy, those jerseys empowered us. We all believed we were the chosen ones, and we could do the impossible. What we saw so many before us fail to do, make it to the National Football League. Eventually, I did. But most of those black boys I spent the afternoons with playing in imaginary Super Bowls weren't at the lockers next to mine. Most of those black boys who pictured themselves running and winning this Sunday's game will never play in a real one. And that's fine. Playing in the NFL isn't really, and shouldn't have to be, every black boy's dream. Black boys don't always know that their dreams off the field matter. They need the space to see each other, diverse possibilities for themselves. Black boys shouldn't have to feel that being good at sports is the only way to be cool or to be valued by the world. A jersey isn't the only cape a black boy can wear. The stats prove I was the exception. Less than 2% of college football players go on to play in the NFL or the National Football League. Just 8 out of every 10,000 high school football players get drafted by the NFL. But for too many black boys, that's still the only path to success that seems feasible. At the 65 universities in the biggest NCAA conferences, black men make up 2.4% of the undergraduate students, but 55% of football players and 56% of basketball players. Growing up, our athletic talents created a hierarchy for how we were viewed in the neighborhood. Colleges, newspapers, magazines, and websites even ranked us according to ability. The better you were at sports, the more respect and love you got. We were celebrated as athletes, and that felt good. Every kid wants to be celebrated. So we all competed to become the best. Parents saw our potential and pushed us to keep trying. If you were an average player, they'd take you up and set up practice drills and help you improve. If you were good, the entire community invested in you. Coming to games, talking about you in the barbershop. Even your friends saw you differently. There was hope for you, but not for them. The neighborhood held you to a higher standard than the other kids. You became the chosen one. You're the one that's going to make it. If you were average at school, though, almost no one pushed you to become a better student. No one set the drills up for you to take for your academics from good to great. Grades mattered only when they kept you from playing. A C- or an A+ were exactly the same because they both meant you were eligible to stay on the team. Now you can go out and read the rest of that article, but the reason I wanted to bring that up again, I talked about it a little bit on Black Focus Radio last week, but the point I'm trying to make to you all is that we devalue our black males. It's almost like we send our black males out and let them grow like tumbling tumbleweeds. Whatever they want to do, you let them do. But we educate our black girls. Black women today are the most degreed minority in this country. They have more degrees than black males, Hispanic males, white females, black females, because we impress upon them the importance of getting an education. But the only thing that we really impress upon black males is whether or not they can run fast, or jump high, or score a touchdown. My argument is that we have to stop that. And that's why I had to do this again for those of you who are listening to the sports show. If you have a young black male, stop expecting him to grow up to be a football star. I know many of you all played football back in the day. Many of y'all never played football back in the day, but you hope you wanted to play, but you weren't big enough or you weren't fast enough. Now you have a son that's big. Now you want him to play. He may not want to play. He might want to be an artist. He might want to be a dancer. He might want to be a chef. He might want to be a professor. You know, I was telling you earlier that I was watching Curiosity, and I was watching NASA as they built the Curiosity rover. And I'm always fascinated with science. I've always been fascinated with science. It was just a wonderful piece to watch those scientists come up with a way to land a rover 10 times bigger than the ones that they had previously landed on Mars. And it was fascinating to watch how that rover was landed and then how it explored the Martian terrain. But as they showed those scientists, that 45-minute show that I watched, there was only one black person there. We have to do better because clearly our colleges don't care about our children. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's talk about the money that, let's say for instance, Forbes rates, let me give you the title of this article. Texas A&M, the most valuable college football team. That's the most valuable football team. Okay? Alabama played in 3 consecutive college football championship games, winning 2 of them, but the Crimson Tide aren't the most valuable college football team in America, according to a Forbes report. Now, this report was put out last September of 2018. That distinction belongs to Texas A&M. How is that possible? Followed by Texas and Michigan. From 2014 to 2016, the Aggies program brought in $148 million in revenue with a $107 million profit. The Longhorns brought in $133 million in revenue, $87 million in profit. The Wolverines, $127 million in revenue, $75 million in profit. Let me just round out the top 10 for you. Alabama, 127 million, 59 million in profit. Ohio State, 120 million in revenue, 69 million in profit. Oklahoma, 118 million in revenue, 72 million in profit. Notre Dame, 112 million in revenue, 72 million in profit. Auburn, 112 million, 61 million in profit. LSU, 112 million, 56 million in profit. Florida, 111 million, 67 million in profit. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 10 are SEC schools. 5, let me take that back because I forgot about Texas A&M. So y'all remember last week when I was talking about when you say you don't have any power with your black kids? See, we'll want them to grow up and be superstars and make money for other people. Make money for other people. But we don't want them to make money for themselves. Y'all remember the article I talked about last week as well? Here's what your average football star is worth. Now, this is the average University of Texas football player is worth $670,000 per year. $670,000 per year. Okay? That's just a football player. University of Alabama, $536,000 per year. University of Tennessee, $521,000 per year. Let me go down because remember I told you that the Texas A&M University was worth more than all of them as far as a sports entity. Well, an average football player at Texas A&M is worth $343,000. By the way, the University of Arkansas, the average player is worth $365,000. In fact, they are in the top 10 SEC schools. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the top 20 schools. 9 of them are SEC schools. The NCAA average in FBS of all the schools, every player is worth $163,000. So in other words, those players are generating more money than the scholarship that they're playing on is worth. Y'all understand where I'm going, right? We don't understand the value of our own people. We've allowed our people to be used and abused by entities under the guise that we're trying to make things better. We're giving them an opportunity. Those same kids go to college and off of them don't even graduate. And if they do graduate, they graduate with degrees that are worthless. You know, because a degree in basket weaving, that's probably not going to make you much money. I told you the story a while back about Dr. Boyce Watkins, right? Dr. Boyce Watkins, who is an economist, a black economist, and he graduated from the University of Kentucky, and he was a tutor. And he tutored many of the athletes that were on campus. An athlete came to him, a football player, and he tells the story. The guy comes to him and wanted to be tutored, and Dr. Boyce Watkins quickly found out while tutoring him that this young guy really didn't need to be tutored. He was pretty darn smart. People just assumed because he was a football player, he was a dummy. And you know what they do is, if you're a football player, mandatory study hall. Now you have to at least, in order to avoid mandatory study hall, you just have to make sure you maintain a 2.0. Now, if you get a 2.0 in college, you might be middle of the pack when you graduate. That's not going to bode well when you're out there in the job market. You can't say, well, I got a degree. Well, what did you graduate in your class? But Dr. Watkins found out that this particular football player, he told Dr. Watkins while he was tutoring him, he said, Dr. Watkins said, hey, look, you really don't need my tutoring. You're pretty smart. The football player told Dr. Watkins, he said, well, you know, I really wanted to major in electronic engineering, electrical engineering. But my football coach told me that would take me away from practice. My football coach told me that you got to be dedicated to the game. And if you major in electrical engineering, that means you're going to have to take classes that may keep you from practice. And if you're not at practice, the potential is you might lose your scholarship. Y'all get what I just said? You have coaches who steer kids who have the potential to be great into BS degrees so that they can just remain eligible to play a game that they could end up breaking their necks, their arms, their legs, and be an invalid for the rest of their lives. This is our sports today. And by the way, these same coaches don't want to pay you. They don't want to pay these players. Look, the average amount of money a NCAA player is worth, that's fair market value of all the players, is $163,000, $163,869. That's the average. Yet the degree that they push these players in, if they're lucky, might make them $40,000 a year. So you're bringing in more money on average as an NCAA football player than the degree that they give you. Is that a fair trade-off? It's almost like, people go into business to make money. Okay? I'm a business owner. I have a barbecue seasoning. I'm in business. Yeah, I love cooking, but I'm really in the business to make money so I can leave something for my grandchildren. When I start losing money, that means when I'm losing more money than I'm making, then I, like most companies, would do something called bankruptcy. I close the business. So if I'm earning less than I make, I can't run a business. So let's say the average scholarship that a football player gets is $50,000. It will earn them a living for $50,000. That's their worth. For 4 years, let's say you stay at a college for 4 years. Let me pull up my calculator here. Okay. Let's say you stay at a college for 4 years. And the average that you earn for that college, and I'm using in general, I'm not using specifics. We're going to go to a specific college here in just a moment. But the average that a college football player earns for a university is $163,869. Let's say you stay there for 4 years. Let's just multiply that by 4. Well, looky there. In 4 years, you have earned $655,476 for that university that's going to give you a degree, if you graduate, that will help you make $40,000 a year. Now, I don't understand how that's a proper trade-off. Do y'all? I mean, you're gonna earn them you're gonna earn them over $500,000, but you're gonna only be able to earn $40,000 for the rest of your life with that degree. In 4 years, you're gonna earn them $655,476 in 4 years. Okay. Now, let's say after you graduate, you get a job for, we'll say $50,000 a year. We know that's not true with all of them. So in 4 years, you're going to make $50,000 a year. That's $200,000 in 4 years. But in 4 years, you just earned the college over $500,000. Oh, boy, that dog don't hunt to me. I think we've got our priorities wrong, and and oh, by the way, let's take an individual college. So since we all live in Arkansas, the average amount of money one football player is worth to the University of Arkansas. Just one football player. $365,936. So let's say you played for the Razorbacks for 4 years, 365, 936 times 4. We already know what that is. That's $1,467,744. So just in 1 year, that player is worth $300,000. In 4 years, you've earned that college $1 million. But you're going to get that degree, it's going to pay you $40,000 a year. Man, you say we don't have power? You say black people don't have power? That's your power right there. Because 60% of those athletes earning that money for those colleges are black kids. That doesn't even include the smaller division schools. That's just the Division 1A. Man, what are we doing to our kids? How are we selling our children down the river just so we want them to be able to get some glory? So we can stick our chest out and say, oh, that's my son. Oh, my boy's and then, of course, you love the fact that people are coming at you and saying, hey, man, your son really played a great game last night. That makes you a proud papa, doesn't it? You know what will make me a proud papa? Is my son being able to take care of himself. Not running up and down a football field. But that's what we've done to our children. We prostituted our children. We prostitute them every day so that, in hopes that they'll make money. I saw an interesting article last week. Is that your grown children don't owe you anything, and you don't owe your grown children anything. They're grown. I found that interesting. But every year we see this coming up. We see this. This is going to happen. Right now, coming up this football season, everybody, we got about 40 days to go before football season. Everybody, oh man, I can't wait for football. Oh, what the Razorbacks going to do? Oh, what the Tide going to do? Football. Ah! It's disgusting. And that's coming from a former football player. This is coming from someone who played high school and college football. This is coming from someone who spent the last 15 years of his life covering the Tennessee Titans, the Vanderbilt Commodores, the SEC, traveling to those games, calling the games for the Tennessee State Tigers. This is that person, me. And the more I watched these games, the more I became disillusioned as how they treat these players. It's almost like these players are prize cattle. They're livestock. And these schools brag about the fact, well, they have their own weight room and they have their own cafeteria. They can go and eat when they want. Well, cows have their own barns. They can go and eat hay whenever they want. Gotta fatten them up. We gotta get some. We'll feed him and we'll get some weight on. That's what they're saying about Daniel Gafford. He needs a little weight on him. We'll fatten him up. They treat your children like they're cattle. They don't really care about them. Coaches will say, oh, well, Bob, he's a good kid. I think he's a good kid as long as he's scoring touchdowns. He's a good kid as long as he can slam the basketball. If they really gave a damn about your children, that when your child breaks his leg and can no longer play, they'll say, hey, look, You committed to this college. We're going to make sure that you get your degree. But you know what they do? They run your children off. Right now, what went on at Arkansas this past season is a classic example of that. Half of the kids that were on that team last year is not on that team this year. You know why? Because they were ran off because of the new coach. Oh, you know, they don't fit my system. They didn't come in and say, well, you know, you're an excellent young man. We need you to graduate. I said, oh, no, they don't fit the system, so we need to win football games, so we need to figure out a way to run you off. You know, when coaches say, well, you got too many scholarships, when you hear coaches say, well, we got too many scholarships, but those things will work themselves out. What that coach is actually saying, that is coach speak to saying, we're going to run some of these kids off. Some of those kids that were promised a scholarship, some of those kids that coaches went and sat on their mama's couches and lied to them and said, we're going to make sure your child gets a scholarship. Those same kids now get ran off because the new coach is only concerned about one thing. Not that child's well-being, but whether or not that child fits his system. That's the only thing they're concerned about. I made the argument a couple of years ago. Remember when the kid Tenpenny got killed, when he was killed in a car wreck? See, here's what happens when you go to college. Most of these kids are without their parents. They're free to do anything they want. I make the argument that most kids have never had a drink until they go to college. And then they get caught up in drinking, drugs, alcohol, you name it. They get caught up in systems that they're not used to, because I know that Tenpenny kid didn't come from a household like that. But somehow or another, he got to Alabama. He became an alcoholic. He became a drug addict. What did Alabama do? Alabama didn't say, hey, look, brother, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. We need to put you in treatment. We're concerned about your alcohol consumption. No, they didn't do that. You know what Alabama did? They suspended him. Then they kicked him off the team. Schools do this all the time. And it doesn't matter what level you... Look, I went to a little bitty AIC school. And the first weekend we were in college, you know what the seniors did? They took us out to a graveyard. And the ritual was to get all the freshmen drunk. Not me. I'm not falling for that okie doke. This is what your colleges do to your children. And your coaches don't care. They just want to make sure. The only thing that when that day, back then, we were having 3-a-days, not 2-a-days. I don't even think they do 2-a-days anymore that much. We had to be at practice at 7 o'clock in the morning. We practiced from 7 to 9. Then we practiced from 2 to 5. And then we'd come back and practice from 7 to 9. 3-a-days. That's the only thing they cared about. They didn't care whether or not you were out in the woods in a cemetery drinking pure grain alcohol. You just needed to be at practice. And if you didn't come to practice, you lose your, what we called aid, your scholarship. So that Martellus Bennett piece, that article, is that we must make our boys, at least we must tell them to dream bigger. You can be more than an athlete. And if you decide that you want to be an athlete, well, guess what? You can be an athlete too. And you can be a scholar. Just like that young athlete who scored a perfect 36 on his SAT. We have the power. Our children are our future. Our children are our power. Some of you old folks need to go sit your asses down somewhere and let these young people take the lead. And what you ought to be doing is supporting them. You ought to be saying, hey, I'm old, I went through this. Let me tell you how to do this. You are going to run the ship. Just like I got Clayton right now. Clayton walks in, he didn't know I was going to make him run my show. Clayton, I said, okay, Clayton, get over. He said, oh, man. I said, you can do it. He didn't know I was going to make him do that. The future is theirs. We as adults, particularly at this age, at my age, I don't know how old y'all are, but I'm only 25. in my mind. What I'm trying to do is create an atmosphere when I know that black people, black children, are going to grow up and understand where their place is in this country. And their place is at the beginning, not the end. That's why those nuts down at that city board need to go 68.5 years old. Come on, man. One other quick point before we get out of here. Dan Le Batard has come out against ESPN. And ESPN, remember, they fired the sister because she spoke on politics. I'm wondering if they're going to fire Dan Le Batard. Is David coming in? So we'll see how it works. We'll talk more about Dan Le Batard in a little bit. We got to go out and take a break. I just found out that David Ashley is not going to be here today. So we do have a guest. And we'll Real Talk, Real Money is about to start. And she's all dressed up and all spiffy and so on and so forth. So we'll get to that here in just a moment. But I got to get out of here. Hope y'all enjoyed the show. It's called The Weekly Sports Magazine on joynetradio.com. All right, do a top drop and do a stop set. Do a top stop set.
Finish this.
Yeah, wait till it finishes.
Tune in every Saturday morning from 9 to 10.
He may have. I just had to check mine.
That larger law firms cannot offer. Our experienced attorneys have brought hundreds of cases to verdict.
Y'all introduce yourselves.
Hey,